Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya. It's less than about 48 hours to the end of the year. Are you ready for the next year, 2022?
Indeed. Good morning, Nigerians. I'm super excited to be here, and I hope you are too. And you're tuning in to Daybreak on Trust Television. I'm looking forward, to the new year.
Yeah, 2021, just like we thought. I mean, it's a year of recovery that many people, expected to see, and it's winding down. But again, we are confronted with another variant of COVID-19, which is the Omicron variant. And, well, a lot of uncertainties here and there. Have you taken your jab? That's one important thing. I'm seeing that the WHO is also saying that, look, they are not able to meet the 40% target that they set out about global inoculation for people.
And also, I saw the WHO releasing a statement saying that the world should prepare for another pandemic, that the COVID-19 is not going to be the last pandemic we're going to see. So we need to prepare ourselves like a form of response for future pandemics to come.
Yeah, so we're in difficult times, really. But what can we do? We have to do what we can, to salvage the situation, the little that you can do, which is to get vaccinated, get yours, and protect people around you.
Booster jabs. A lot of people have not actually taken the booster jabs, but if you have taken the first and the second jab, do endeavor to take your booster shot as well.
All right, well, today on Daybreak, we'll be doing an assessment of the economy in the year 2021, just looking at the highlights of the year, and also talk about what to expect in the coming year 2022. We have an analyst that will be joining us and talking about Taifa Abraham, and also we'll be also having newspaper reviews, and we have in the studio Nelson Omonu Yakubu, who is the editor, the Summit Post, I beg your pardon, publisher of the Summit Post News, and he'll be giving us perspectives on the stories that made the headlines this morning.
But before that, let's take a look at the 29th of December in world history. Wow, quite a number of events that happened on the 29th of December in world history.
Straight up, we would be going straight into the newspaper headlines for today, and we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and quite a number of stories there. And one of them, the lead story in particular, is talking about Obasanjo to Clark. That's talking about Edwin Clark, I believe. The lead story says, Niger Delta can't claim oil ownership while in Nigeria. The story has the riders insists all resources belong to the country. Ex-President Wright, Professor Carey. And also you would see the pictorial there showing you homeless children queue to receive a morning meal from missionaries of charities in Kolkata, India. And then below that, electoral bill component, not good for Nigeria. That's according to the presidency. That's quite a view there that you may want to take a look, to see the details. You'd find that on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Masari insists on power shift to south. That's on page 6. And then man, wife's son, 3 others die in Niger boat mishap again. It's really sad. That axis, I think something needs to be done about, boat mishaps around that axis. FCTA to revoke titles of 435 abandoned buildings and 600 plots. Then, of course, at the top there, you'd see Lassa fever death toll hits 92. Controversy trails disruption of Zamfara PDP Congress. Also, Itunu, federal government family reject autopsy, demand justice for Ivory Coast. These are the major stories on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at other stories on the Punch newspaper. The lead story there, 2023. Electronic transmission of results doubtful. 301 local governments lack internet facilities. And the riders, only 473 local governments have internet access. Federal government plans additional 224 local governments by 2023. You'd also see experts say satellite technology can cover local governments without internet. INEC can use other platforms where internet is not available, says Olurode. And you see a pictorial there at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library in Abeokuta, where young children are still celebrating Yuletide. You'd also see on page 8, Adeleke loyalists suspend New Ocean PDP factional chairman. Ayade mourns as ex-Senate President Waya's widow dies in the UK. And on page 5 of the Punch newspaper, child visit. Ex-wife accuses Fani Kaidi of shunning court order. That's quite a controversy. If you'd like to get the details of that story, you can grab a copy of the Punch newspaper. And on page 4, Itunu Nidcom, father fault autopsy, lawyers plan ECOWAS suit. You'd also find man, 2 wives, son, others heading for christening drown in Niger. That's quite sad. And on page 20 of the Punch newspaper, Imo kicks as Okorocha's son-in-law tackles Ozodinma, false arrest. And right at the top on page 19, you'd see the story about Discus suffering load reduction as power generation sheds 571.5 megawatts. And on page 10, National Assembly sends appropriation bill to Buhari. President signs Friday. And you also see the story about federal government set to close 2020 marginal oil field bid round. And on page 28, you'd see 15,049 Nigerian nurses moved to UK in 5 years. That's according to a report. So these are some of the major stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at The Guardian this morning. There, the lead story talks about COVID-19. Yes, prepare for another pandemic. COVID-19 won't be the last. That's according to United Nations. And then the writers there, massive new bird flu outbreak could be 2022's deadly pandemic. And then you see also 10 million Nigerians get first dose as WHO laments missing global 40% vaccination target. And then the next one there says China, Germany impose new lockdowns to curb Omicron. And then the pictorial there shows you abandoned refuse being at Balogun area of Idumota, Lagos yesterday. At the bottom, you would find You ought to be statesman, not tribesman, Obasanjo tells Clark. And then the next one, concerns mount over closure of streets in Lagos. Beware, Lagos airport's car park unsafe for travelers and vehicles. You'd want to take a look at the details of that story. How vaccine cards are procured without jabs. So that's a special report there by The Guardian. You may want to take a look at the racketeering industry.
Racketeering
You know,
industry.
in Nigeria, specifically as it regards, accessing certificates for COVID-19 jobs. Nigerians, I don't know. Well, the story at the very top there, you'd see Bielsa spill, leak impossible without interference. That's according to experts there. These are the stories that are on the front page of The Guardian today.
Okay, let's take one more before we do the review of some of these stories. Let's take a look at some of the stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. They are also leading with a story about oil belongs to Nigeria, not Niger Delta, says Obasanjo. And the writers there, ex-president tackles Clark. I bear no grudge against region. You'd also see outages in Nigeria. Others push oil price to $80 per barrel. And right at the top on page 27, ex-president Jammeh guilty in murder of 9 Nigerians. That's quite tragic. If you want to get details of that story, grab a copy of the Nation newspaper. You'd also see on page 4, COVID-19, World Health Organization can't meet 40% global vaccination target. Nwosu, I was accused of supplying arms to militants. Palace, 2 vehicles torched after Osun Carnival. And you also see a story about Bielsa's spill. Abrupt wellhead leak impossible without interference, experts insist. So these are some of the stories on the Nation this morning.
All right. So let's get perspectives on this. Okay. So we'll just take a little break, and then when we come back, you get to meet our guest, and then we'll have perspectives on the stories today.
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual Daily Trust Dialogue, themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest speaker, Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer David Umahi. Guest speaker, former Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadariya Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on Trust TV, and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
Well, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, we'll be taking perspectives on the stories that made the headlines. And we have in the studio publisher, Summit Post News, Nelson Omonu Yakubu, to give us perspectives. Welcome again to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's begin with a look at some of the stories we saw on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The first one that, got my attention is the, I don't know whether to call it response of the presidency now, about the components of the electoral bill not good for Nigeria, according to the presidency. And I'm wondering how that is, really. If you know the components of the electoral bill, talks about, how Nigeria's democracy can be further strengthened. Right. Talking about electronic transmission of results, independent candidature, whether the controversy, of course, is there about direct or indirect primaries. But, I mean, whether we like it or not, the essence of amendment is to
improve the system.
Improve systems. So I'm surprised that I'm seeing this, really.
Oh, thank you. The controversy surrounding the electoral bill is yet to be over, because the presidency has not come out with categorical statements, take a stand. I think saying this today and tomorrow you are saying something else is not will not augur well for the effort we're making to try to improve our electoral system. You see, if you what we expect the president to do is point out in clear terms, this area I'm not comfortable with it. Please, can you do something about this? Then return the bill to me, to continue to tell us that some components of this thing is not good for Nigeria. Those are stories. We need action. Time is running out. Now, if there is anything that must be done to the existing, to the bill, so that they'll clean it up to meet the expectation of the president, why not do it? But to continue to tell us some aspect is not good for Nigeria, that is just, it amounts to a waste of time.
Okay. From what we are seeing now, it seems there is a form of communication gap, between the government and the people. What really is the problem?
No, the problem simply is the inability of Buhari-led government to communicate, to link up with Nigeria and their expectation. Of course, there's need to improve the electoral system, and that is what people have been clamoring. Now, there's issue of electronic transmission of results. If you are dealing with that, we have heard the new revelation is that about 300 and something local government cannot, they don't have internet. While experts are saying satellite facilities can actually capture those places. INEC told us before that they can cover even the remotest of our local governments. Now something else is coming out again, that 300 and something local governments has no internet facilities and all that. Experts are saying no, satellite facilities can actually capture those places. See, who are we? Why are we doing this to ourselves? It's just some, narrow interest, trying to maintain status quo so that for political benefits, and it is sad.
All right. Now, let's move away from that story. There are quite a number of stories this morning to look at. One of them, the issue of Niger Delta and the oil debate. We saw that story on Daily Trust, and it's also on the Punch newspaper, I believe. Are we really debating this? Where where the oil belongs to, and all that?
I want to start with papers must do their things. Media houses will always do their things. The same story on Guardian, for instance. Guardian reported a different, as in the headline now.
Yeah.
So, and it shows the editorial focus of most media houses. But let's talk about the reply of Chief Obasanjo. He's a Nigerian. a foremost Nigerian that has given a lot to Nigeria. I think he is not far from the truth. Whatever resources is found, depending on what the system, the formula we have adopted for ourselves. Now, the formula we adopt here is we are using federation, okay? And now, but because of our peculiar circumstance, we have said that there are certain resources that can be explored by the region. Or we don't have region, we have states. States can explore. But there are some that federal government can actually. So, as it is now, the enabling laws we have empowers the federal government to take these resources on our behalf, then share to ensure that all parts of with special consideration for some for states. That is where we have a derivation, 13% derivation we have now. So this is unnecessary, but I think it further reinforces the fact that it's failure of governance. See, some of these statements, like Chief Edwin Clark is always, I mean, what most people from Niger Delta region are always banking on has to do with failure of leadership. If you give 13% to the region or to a state in the region and it is used judiciously, plus what the federal government is also doing in that place, we discover that it will narrow the gap of people's misgiving. Even if resources from there is being shared across the country, it will still, the misgivings of people will not be that pronounced, because they are seeing physical development.
So my concern is why, you know, with all the derivation formulas and all of that, why the focus of the conversation remains, you know, on the central government, talking about federal government. I'm not seeing enough pressure on state governors, you know, as to doing what they need to do with the resources available to them. Talking about, say, for instance, the 13% derivation.
Yes.
The conversation is not about, okay, Mr. Governor, the South governors, where is the 13% derivation and where have we channeled it?
Let me start with, I think government needs to demonstrate political will, okay? What is good for one is also good for the other. If a petroleum from the Niger Delta region is being exploited for the benefit of the whole of the country, all the states, a sharing of a national cake. Now there's gold in Zamfara, for instance, and it is clear to the people of Niger Delta that in Zamfara there is gold there that people are boldly, they are do. But the purchase, I mean, the hot chase they give to those that are trying to do something around illegal refineries and all that in the Niger Delta is not the same thing as what is being the way the federal government, because the suspicion is that federal government is giving leverage to these people because of where they come from in order to tamper with their resources. That take effective control of the gold they have there, then take our own oil, put them together so that the benefits of gold in Zamfara will also reach the person in the states in the Niger Delta. By that, if you are transparent in the way you handle all this, the disquiet will die down. But when you discover that all these let me call them criminals because it's illegal to set up a refinery, you are not buying, you have to steal oil to refine and all that. So the same measure you're treating them.
But how do we really determine, you know, the measure or the approach of government in terms of, you know, firmness in dealing, you know, with
reports everywhere. We have not seen illegal miners, gold miners in Zamfara. there was this time we heard that the state government was even trying to sell gold. And that instead causing some misgivings from this other side. See, the simple point is federal government should up its game. See, if you're doing anything, let the purity of your motive be clear to, and it will just kill every agitation. Okay. But yes, if resources is from, in this case now, for instance, gold, because it's always reference point for the people that are arguing in Niger Delta, that why are these people allowed to mine? They are not being arrested. The way the military goes to the creeks of the Niger Delta to fish out these oil bunkers and all that. They should apply the same measure to those that are plundering resources in Zamfara. And you see that agitation will just die down. Then back to Edwin Clark and Edwin Clark and Chief Obasanjo, they know themselves. And from antecedent, we know where they stand. Sir Edwin Clark is a politician. He's an elder statesman and also a politician. And most of the statements, even if most times I've never heard him, come down hard on governors of his region. Look, from so time to so time, this is what you have received. It is expected that his argument is not wrong. His argument is not wrong. If we are operating through federalism, his argument is not wrong. Like in US and the rest, states can take control of their resources, then do royalty to the central government. But because of our peculiar circumstance, we have adopted another kind of federalism. We are not there yet.
Which is also an arguable system and highly debatable. The issues of Nigeria's federalism.
This is sick because it kills creativity. Yes, our federal system kills creativity. It permits, sometimes ago, former Deputy Senate President, Chief Ike Ekweremadu told us, describe it as feeding bottle federalism. Go to your state, wait for 30 days, come to Abuja, collect resources, and go back. It kills creativity. Governors no longer think out of the box, see what they can do to generate resources within their state. Meanwhile, they are sitting on resources.
Okay. Now, for quite a long time, the Niger Delta has been clamoring, for resource control. In the case of the Niger Delta, because this seems to be like a special case, what strategy really does the government need to employ in their case?
It's as simple as the current 13% derivation, if it is judiciously utilized, I think it will douse the agitation. But it is as if when you give, if the current system we have is give money to this person, there is no, I think federal government will engage more with governors of the region, because the more disconnect, the more agitation in the Niger Delta, not even from the leaders, but from the downtrodden. As it is now, they believe they have been cheated. But if government decide that, look, of this 13% derivation, federal government is going to set aside another 5% for direct intervention. For direct intervention, I think it will go a long way.
Which is, I thought that's why we had the PIA, the provision in the PIA that says the host communities, are entitled
by
to,
the time,
some percentage.
Beautiful. Some of the provisions of the new PIA, beautiful. But you know the problem here. The gap is implementation. When Chief Obasanjo came in 1999, one of his priorities was how to assuage the feelings of the Niger Delta people, and he accelerated the 13% derivation to be passed by the National Assembly, which he did. And it was expected that the expectation was that with that 13% derivation, of course, they should move gradually from that level of poverty and all that to, but over time, we discovered that 13% derivation has not really worked in most of these Niger Delta states because politicians are just corruption.
And now one would say that, well, perhaps, you know, we're going to see a change, you know, with the PIA. We have the NDDC, you know, in place, Niger Delta Development Commission, and also this 13% derivation formula. So for all of this, there's some amount that go to the Niger Delta.
That's right.
You know, so at least we should begin to see some change, and then maybe some pressure also on
local leaders,
you know, at that level, you know, to ensure that all that is allocated to that region, you know, through all of these systems and provisions in place, you know, is, you know, trickling down to the ordinary people there.
You see
in the
the
region.
NDDC, as at the forensic audit that was, I think over 2,000 projects scattered across the 9 states of the Niger Delta. Abandoned projects everywhere, projects that are not necessary. So that too is another conduit pipe. If direct intervention, that is direct intervention from federal governments in the Niger Delta, but it has been turned into conduit pipe. So except, see, the whole thing boils down to political will. Leadership is about political will to do the right thing. Now, if you appoint the head, the drama at the National Assembly of Mike, it's that is our country for you.
In fact, even among the host communities, there was this, you know, drama during the, you know, the public hearing of the bill, the PIA bill.
Who gets what? There's always issue around there. But the project, if you're initiating a project, it should be targeted at at solving problem in Niger Delta. And then if you initiate project, target to time. In the next 1 year, we are delivering this project. But there are projects that started in 2005, they are still uncompleted, according to the recent project audit reports in the Niger Delta. And you see that names are just coming up, people that should stand for their region and say, look, people have suffered enough, let us make this thing work. Even if the governors, minus the governor, what is coming from the Niger Delta development should be able to impact lives. Build clinics for these people, for crying out loud. They are not asking for too much. They have schools to send their children to. They have, if they are sick, they have hospital to go to. And then you are ready, maybe if they want to transport anything to nearest market, they are able to transport their farm produce to nearest market. Then by that you start beating down poverty. But because of how irresponsible political elites has become, so poverty continues to aggravate, and everybody is looking for how to have a pinch of the pie. Well, of course. So they take to other means to get it.
Really okay, let's take a look at other stories. On the Guardian newspaper, the lead story there talks about COVID-19, and the UN is warning the world, saying prepare for another pandemic. COVID-19 won't be the last. Now, in the case of Nigeria, when the COVID-19 broke out, many will say we were not prepared. So has this taught us a lesson so far?
We have not learned anything. Sorry to disappoint. We have not learned anything. First, I want to start with an appeal to World Health Organization. We are already traumatized. The way they the way they issue some of these warnings is as if you should just jump into the well and leave this world for.
Yeah, but if you say we've not learned anything, some would say, look, we have more number of isolation centers now than we ever did. I mean, recall that at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there weren't even any isolation centers.
Go to those centers and see for yourself what they call isolation centers. Most of these places they call isolation centers is just ISO. See, the thing is this: we should we're talking about Omicron now, COVID-19 and all that. The Lhasa that is backyard here. Lhasa is the name of a place in Borno State. And it has been there since, I think, since the 70s. Intermittently, it comes, it goes. And our local laboratories cannot get to work. Our scientists should get to work and be able to, they should be given money to go into, we have to wait. You saw the destruction of COVID vaccine, the expired ones that,
yes.
I was at a forum when somebody appealed to all these donor countries that please don't give us expired vaccine. The one that is remaining 2 months to expire, you ship them to us. So it's an indictment. See, the more you continue to depend on others for what you need, that is the kind of frustration you suffer. We have to carry cameras and all that to go and show that we are destroying COVID vaccine because they are expired. When were they donated? Because at the last minute when it's about expiring, they were moved to us in form of donation, and we thank them, brought camera, celebrate. See, we need to invest more in our, see, most of these scientific discoveries, if you go out there, most of them are Africans. And as a matter of fact, most of them are Nigerians because they are very brilliant. It's just that back home, there seems to be some, this thing back here that kills initiative. Why is it that if a Nigerian go out, he is celebrated, he start doing well.
Successfully.
Back here.
Maybe we do not appreciate our own.
Apart from the level of investment, maybe there is we don't pump enough money into research. If not, I tell you, COVID is something we can handle. Lassa fever is what we can, but it is sad that 92 people will still die of something that started in about in the 70s. Up till now, we've not been able to overcome it. So it's a failure of even if you budget enough money for research purposes, will it get to the end users? It's another question.
Okay, now away from COVID, it seems like we are going to see yet another outbreak, even though this has come and gone for years. I'm talking about bird flu. Yeah. And the UN is also saying we should prepare for bird flu in 2022 because it's going to be quite another pandemic that is going to come through. Are we preparing? Are we having anything on ground, to prepare?
How well are we handling this? That we're thinking of the one that is yet to come. See, the first thing is that we need leadership. When leadership demonstrates will, it will be so clear. And the people will line, a lot depends on leadership. When the leadership is committed to changing narrative, the people will just fall in line. Now, this is a challenge. We've not been able, I think by now, I thought federal government will just, for all these big loans, maybe one of them, we just take loans so that we know that this is taken for something that has to do with the people directly. For instance, like what do you call this, research institute in Vaughan. You pump money there, if you like, collect loan. Yes. And we know that, yes, this loan is taken for us to empower ourselves against subsequent outbreaks. So, well, without our research institutions being equipped, we have Nigerians out there that you saw a story of the thousands of nurses that have to flee Nigeria because of our best hands are going out because of what the way things are back here.
Well, another issue that, one may want to think about. Now, say, for instance, the WHO is raising concern that they may not be able to meet, 40% target of the vaccination they have set out to achieve globally. So there's this apathy, of course, of people taking the jabs because of the controversies and the conspiracies.
Yeah.
What's the guarantee that if we do not take the ones imported from abroad, what's the guarantee that we will take the one that we produce by ourselves? Looking at the attitude of Nigerians about, patronizing locally produced, drugs and any other thing Nigerian.
Let's produce it first. See, when Nigerians are interesting people, when they see that this was produced in Nigeria, the pride alone.
Do we really have that pride? Because
no,
I've seen that
the
with
pride,
other products. The way Nigerians behave towards anything Nigerian. There's this negativity, so much negativity around.
See, those concerned are not doing enough to change the narrative. They are not doing enough. I think there was this time that somebody brought shoes that was made in Aba, and belt, and also bought the one that was made in one country. I don't want to mention the name. That is reputed for leather works and all that. By the time he compared the two and said, you choose between these two. There's a trade fair they used to hold here. Organized by Senator Abarebe, made in Abafe. If you get there, you will know that we are not just, and people are beginning to be aware that, look, there is a lot in here, but medically, Nigerians are even back here, our research institutions, it's not as if they are not doing it's just that the funds they need, they are competent people. If they produce vaccine, and maybe government arms that are responsible for enlightening citizens, by the time you show me 20 people who took the vaccine about 3 months ago, they are still bouncing well, they are here, and this thing is produced in Nigeria, so the likelihood of injecting some things to do this, or maybe theories and all that, will reduce. But as it has to do with this COVID and all that, if vaccine is produced locally, and by the time we intensify our sensitization, we'll start getting it right. And the pride I was talking about, for in Nigeria to know that this Nigeria, for once, were able to do the right things by putting heads together to come up with a vaccine for a particular outbreak. It tells on to the international community. It shows that we are beginning to find our bearing.
Okay. Now, talking about that, one of the African countries came up with its, I forgot the... Madagascar.
Yeah.
The Madagascar, solution, to COVID-19. We saw how that went. We saw the attitude of even, Western countries and
yes.
European countries towards that, But again, this is something that some of their experts there, they believe that it worked for them, But the negativity that we are talking about, So that's something to fight, don't you think?
In multilateral institutions set up to standardize some of these, I'm sorry, see, they are there for so many purposes. Part of it is to kill some initiative. If though is a herbs-based solution, so but then if these people say this is working, why not give it a try? World Health Organization descended on them and start saying something, lobby African leaders to distance themselves from that initiative. So you see,
the share that was given to Nigeria, I don't even know what happened to it.
We use it. So they collected, I think government just collected it to maintain good relationship. But I don't think we were disposed to using it. See, the point is this: they use subtle pressure. I agree with your concern that if we come up with a vaccine, local vaccine, having to cross their hurdle of all these multilateral institutions who will shout down and say, bring it, let us, we are going to put it under all those. The medicines we produce locally here is, are we passing through World Health Organization to be able to produce them? They are produced in Lagos and all that and sold everywhere. And it's working. But if it comes to vaccine, because vaccine is long lasting, it's more, it will up our respect in the international community and all that. It will send message to the fact that we are beginning to up our game. That will go through. But the medicine we produce here locally by ourselves, our scientists will research and come up with maybe cough syrup or malaria something, and they're working very effectively. But if it comes to vaccine, the one that will impact on the country's credibility and all that, you will see their reaction. So right. I agree with your concern.
Hope that we see that.
Yes. So quickly,
turn up.
Quickly before we round up, shortly. I want us to get perspectives on this story. Beg your pardon, about the ex-president of Yahya Jammeh. That's Gambia, the ex-Gambian president. You know, is found guilty of murder of 9 Nigerians. So, what is expected of Nigeria? You know, as regards this revelation.
See, the unfortunate legacy of Yahya Jammeh is just we allowed him go that time because, you know, Nigeria has spearheaded chasing him out. Yes, through ECOWAS. The president was determined. That is they know Nigeria for that. But with this revelation, I think Yahya Jammeh should be wherever he is. I think he's in one of the neighboring countries, Guinea also. No, he's in the neighboring country. You know, when he left immediately, it was Saudi Arabia. Then from there, he came back to, I think it's Equatorial Guinea. It's a neighboring country. The recent election, he was interfering from that country, making broadcasts. Making broadcasts. The 9 he will pay.
Exactly.
He's going to pay for the life of the 9 Nigerians he killed. But let me say this. If you want to advocate for the right of Nigerians that were killed outside, so do it clean.
Let's start from here.
Let's start from here.
You know, with this revelation, many will say if it were to be another country, we would have been seeing, you know, those kind of moves by now. But we've not seen anything, you know, happen. And some will say, well, this might be left to go down the drain as well.
It will always, just like anybody can just be brought down here and we're not doing much about it. But for Jammeh, for the purpose of our standing in the sub-region, West African sub-region, of course, Jammeh has already had 1 or 2 issues before that we'll not mention here. That was why he was pushed out. He did us, and we showed him that, yes, there's a giant country within, despite our challenges. So he was pushed out. This revelation now, he won't go unpunished.
Well, let's just say that this is a first step to, because I'm sure that this is an outcome from a committee,
the Truth and Reconciliation Commission
that was set up, you know, to investigate his reign, you know, at the time, and the violations and abuse of human rights at the time. So let's just say this is the first step. We are watching to see perhaps, you know, the matter sent to the ICC, which I believe is already been before the ICC. We'll continue to follow.
I want to use this opportunity to call on ECOWAS to set up an ad hoc court to try. I think that will get that faster than waiting for ICC. For crying out loud, must we wait for ICC to come and somebody who committed heinous crime within our borders? We should be able to handle that. I think it's only when we are not able to handle it that we should refer it to ECOWAS.
But in any case, we should be able to handle it. I mean,
we should be able to handle it. ECOWAS should be able. There's ECOWAS court. He should be brought to ECOWAS court. He should be arrested from wherever he is, then bring to ECOWAS court, because he's a member. His country is a member of ECOWAS, and the subsequent court, the ECOWAS Court of Justice, that is resident in Nigeria, they will bring him here for trial, and that will now begin to, assuage the feeling, the anger of the people that 9 Nigerians were killed under Jammeh.
Terrible.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspectives with us on Daybreak this morning. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
All right, we've been speaking with the publisher, Summit Post newspaper, Nelson Omonu. He is Nelson Omonu Yakubu, and he has been very, very interesting in his perspectives this morning. Well, thank you for staying with us. If you are just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. We've been having discussions about, the state of the nation generally, going by the stories that made the headlines on our newspapers this morning. Now, we will be taking a review of the year 2021 in terms of the economy. Now, Nigeria's economy for 2021 was clouded with high inflation, mass unemployment, and rampant instability. Assuming that the currency stabilizes in the medium term as oil exports continue to recover, the outlook will become slightly brighter. Now, however, analysts said that policy choices by the central bank created macro imbalances, and while the government was unable to get a handle on multiple security crises bubbling away across Nigeria. Now, these indices created a growth profile that falls well behind potential. Now, some analysts have said that the year 2022 will probably not be significantly different from the current year, as widespread poverty, high unemployment, and also falling consumer purchasing power are expected to persist. Now, we'll be discussing this, and we have in the studio an economist and also a member, business manager, and governing council of the Nigerian Economic Society, Dr. Taifa Abraham, in the studio. And also join us virtually via Skype is a financial analyst, Mukhtar Mohammed, who will also be joining the conversation this morning. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
You're welcome. And now, Mr. Taifa, before we start with you, let's link up with Mukhtar Mohammed, who is now on standby, a financial analyst from Lagos. Hello, Mukhtar.
Hello. Okay.
It seems we have a breach, in transmission there. Now, let's kick off. Mr. Taifa, can you give us, can you walk us through how the economic outlook is in 2021 as we look forward to 2022?
Yeah, thank you very much. We came into 2021 fiscal year with the hope that we attain a GDP of about 3% coming from the COVID-19 and impact on 2020. We came into 2021 hoping to attain an inflation rate that will be way lesser than 13%. We came into 2021 with a total government spending size that was projected to be about, that was approved to be about 16.39 trillion, and then later raised using a supplementary budget again. In terms of hoping to be financed using borrowing, that's what I mean. We had a total spending size of 16.39 trillion, hoping that to be funded mostly with borrowings, meaning that our savings were not doing too good. We came into 2021 with unemployment already double digits. We came into 2021 with a health system that was struggling, massive level of insecurity, high level of food prices, and insecurity affecting the entire food supply chains. So as we moved into 2021, we saw that the government employed its weapons of monetary policy and fiscal policy, as well as income redistribution policy, in order to see how they can use this policy, counter-cyclical policy measures to attain price stability in terms of low level of inflation, stable exchange rates, and address the issue of unemployment. So generally, why government effort was majorly through expansion in spending, which was largely financed through borrowings. What we recorded in terms of our domestic economic health was that we saw GDP improve from a 0.15% in the first quarter of 2021 to 5.01% in the second quarter, and then presently that we are doing 4.01% in the third quarter. So in terms of our domestic balance, we saw an improvement in economic growth, but as at yet, it has not translated to improvement in employment and poverty reduction because of the time lag that this growth variables takes to impact on development variables. On the external health, we saw an exchange rate that was above $50 billion, but declined to about $30 billion, and then rose in December towards the last quarter, of 2021.
Okay.
But it rose not because our export strengthened, but because our borrowing. So IMF was contributing, China is contributing, and because of the need to be able to maintain a healthy external balance to be able to finance or support our borrowing. So this is how the economy came in terms of 2021. Okay. Growth that didn't translate to job creation and external reserve that was strengthened, but because it is expected to make our borrowing capacity very attractive.
Okay, so we'll come back to you, but let's get also perspectives from our virtual guest who is joining us via Skype from Lagos, Mukhtar Mohammed. Let's have your own assessment of the I would say the economic performance in the year 2021. Okay, so we will reconnect with Mukhtar. Unfortunately, we're unable to do so at the moment. All right, you may continue. I want us to take this, indices, from each of them, and have a review. Now, talking about the GDP, where were we, and where are we now? Are we where we, expected it to be, from the beginning of the year?
Okay.
And what are the challenges that, why are we not able to meet up the target?
Great. Economically, we measure our economic performance from the domestic side of it and the external part of the equation. On the domestic side, that's where we're looking at aggregate consumption from government, private sector, businesses, consumers. We're looking at total investment from government, private sector as well, state government, everyone. Then we're looking at government spending from federal, state, and local government. These three macroeconomic variables helps us to measure our domestic absorption capacity when we look at the consumption, investment, and government aspect. Then on the external aspect, we're looking at export and import, but we're more concerned about the net export in terms of how our export is performing really vis-a-vis import. Now, on the domestic aspect, the key variables we look at is GDP, gross domestic product, inflation, exchange rate, interest rates. All these variables are growth variables. Then your question right now is to ask where we are, how we are doing in terms of GDP. So the essence of my introduction is to let you know that GDP is just one of the indices we use in assessing our domestic macroeconomic health. But GDP seems to be this most attractive guy on the block because it is something that tells us it gives us the monetary value of total goods and services produced within an economy by residents and citizens of that economy across all the local government, states, and the federal within an economy. So economies like that of emerging countries like Nigeria, GDP is a big deal because of our weak capacity in terms of export and to be able to assess how we are doing in terms of boosting domestic investment and helping small and medium-scale businesses to grow. So GDP is a big deal for our domestic economic assessment. Many economists and financial analysts don't really like the GDP measure because, like we defined earlier, it's just a monetary value of all goods and services. Some people want to see how GDP translates into happiness, into per capita income, into job creation, into poverty. But as it is for now, as weak as GDP may be, that is what economists still use to compare themselves across globe. Now, Nigeria as a country has GDP, but the state government don't have, at subnational level, states don't have GDP, but states have inflation. So when the concept of the GDP calculation is to look at the total monetary value of goods and services, like I said, and see how they've changed within a year. Now, in terms of 2021, compared to 2020, in 2020, we had a GDP that was doing about 0.11% for 2020 as a whole. Don't forget, in the context of the economic recovery and growth plan, we were hoping that our GDP by 2020 will be 7%, but we ended 2020 with a GDP that was less than 1% because of the impact of COVID and challenges of being able to consolidate on 2017 growth into 2018 to 2019, and that was dragged down by 2020. And don't forget, already the baseline for the ARGP was 2016, and that baseline year already was economic recession year. So this challenge has affected our country's capacity to attain the goals or the targets that was mapped out in the economic recovery and growth plan. So in terms of GDP, we succeeded in growing in the first quarter of 2021 from that 0.11% to 0.51% in the first quarter of 2021 and moved further in the second quarter to 5.01%, but by third quarter we declined slightly to 4.03% or 4.01% thereabout. So that shows you that we have in 2021 we had our GDP improved, but it is quarter on quarter improvement we are looking at. By the time the year ends properly, we'll be doing a proper year on year, comparing the full 2021 GDP with 2020, so that we'll see where we were. But so the concept is that businesses are growing, consumption is growing, people are having ability to pick up in businesses, but GDP is weak to measure whether that growth has translated to poverty reduction or employment creation, as it were.
Now, from your explanation, it seems that we are way behind potential. Some experts have actually said that policy choices by the Central Bank of Nigeria are responsible for creating, these imbalances. Is that so in your assessment?
The Central Bank of Nigeria is responsible for monetary policy. In this economic discussion we're having this morning, I started by letting us know that we have a domestic absorption aspect. And our counter-cyclical policies in economics is either monetary policy, fiscal policy, and sometimes trade and income redistribution policy. The Apex Bank, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria, is the umpire of the monetary policy aspect. And what that means is that CBN tries to achieve macroeconomic stability objectives of full employment, job creation, balance of payment, stability, and then inflation stability. CBN seeks to achieve these four objectives using its own monetary policy tools, open market operation, which includes money supply, interest rates, demand for money, and things like that. So what CBN does is that if there's inflation in the economy, if there's inflation, general price of goods and services is increasing, CBN withdraws money in circulation by selling treasury bills to commercial banks. When CBN sells, commercial banks will buy. When commercial banks buy, the money in circulation reduces. So when domestic savers, investors go to the banks to make to demand for loans or loanable funds, the money in circulation will be low. So this is how CBN used in reducing money in circulation so that it will target inflation. But when CBN continues to withdraw money in circulation, but the inflation trend is not going down, then it signals to CBN that there's an abnormality in the inflationary monetary policy link equation. That was monetary policy efficiency and effectiveness in reducing inflation is being weakened by some other exogenous variables. So CBN begins to innovate by the kind of policies you saw Central Bank did under Governor Emefiele, by intervening in sectors, intervening in small-scale businesses, even in imports, even in grains, agricultural produce. The concept is that the policy of CBN of reducing food inflation through monetary policy, money supply, is not achieving that desired target. So if they notice that the price of maize is increasing, CBN now innovated through Anchor's Borrowers Program and many of such programs, including the 100 for 100 policy, to help businesses that are not growing because of weak credit to have better credit, and then to even target food crops where the price of them is very high to help intervene in that sector. But the whole idea for CBN is to ensure that they achieve reduction in overall food prices so that people can see that reduction in inflation can actually translate to food inflation. So this is where CBN innovated a lot. And for many analysts, the thinking is that CBN intervened in other sectors, in agriculture, in industry, thereby making it difficult for those sectors to game their own policy programs for those sectors. So I largely agree that CBN intervention in these sectors created a bit of policy somersault in all these respective sectors. What is required, or what was required at some point, is for CBN to work with those specific ministries, which I know CBN did, to ensure that there's harmony in the policy coordination. But CBN taking the lead role openly is something that should be checked going forward in 2022. If CBN wants to intervene in maize, for instance, there should be a back channel where they collaborate with Agriculture Ministry effectively, so that Agricultural Ministry will be the one announcing. Because when CBN announces its policy intervention on TV, agricultural policy players follow CBN direction, and the Agriculture Ministry or the sector becomes the one following CBN, and it begins to create some kind of bad blood in terms of fiscal angle and monetary policy as mix. So these are some of the challenges that led to those analysts saying that CBN's policy affected the balance of the economy.
Okay, so I would slightly take you back a bit. You mentioned earlier that at the beginning of the year, we recorded some growth in terms of GDP. But somewhere along the line, there was a decline. Could you wrap our heads around the reasons for that decline, somewhere along, within the year? What exactly happened?
Yeah, precisely in the second quarter of 2021, our GDP grew from 0.51%, meaning from less than 1% to more than 5% from January, February, March to April, May, June. So, but by July, August, September, it declined again from 5.01% to 4.01%. So, GDP follows seasonal pattern. If you compare first quarter GDP to first quarter GDP of 2020, you notice that economic growth follows seasons, rainfall pattern, the time budget was passed, the time budget implementation started, the period in which farmers are planting and when they're harvesting. So what happened in the third quarter of 2021 that GDP declined? Don't forget, third quarter is July, August, September. This is the peak of rain in general. So, and the capacity for projects to go on within this period in terms of the needed capital expenditure that will fuel completion of projects reduced. So these are some of the seasonal factors that affected our GDP growth in the third quarter of 2021. And not just 2021, every third quarter in general. In terms of, if you seasonalize GDP growth, you notice that third quarter growth always have that reduction in growth from agricultural sector, which is more of a planting period, and then even for construction and investment, everything halts. Nobody's building, nobody's buying cement, nobody is going out early in the morning. Even the women on the road, the people selling on the roadside cannot even go out as early.
So there's
to
a
sell.
drop in productivity.
Yes, because of rain and other seasonal factors that affect that period. So it's a normal issue for GDP to decline across the calendar months because of its seasonal characteristics. So what is important is to take an average growth of GDP to see how we are performing. But by and large, what that drop in GDP in the third quarter signals is that our economy is still heavily public sector driven. If it's private sector always innovates to overcome challenges, including that of rain. But for our economy, which is largely public sector, once government is not releasing funds for contractors, or when contractors halt their construction activities, it affects stock of money in circulation, productivity, and overall GDP in terms of even import, because nobody's importing capital import again to continue their construction and things like that. So GDP decline in the third quarter economically is not something that we are unaware of. It's just the seasonal characteristic of GDP. What's important is that our GDP is doing relatively well across the quarters and is for now way above 4%.
Okay. Now with all these indices, as we look forward to 2022, is it looking bright?
As we look forward to 2022, there are a lot of factors internationally and domestically that signal some form of risks. COVID-19, as we all know it, is a health challenge, but has investment, serves as an investment risk factor in terms of big investors, in terms of all the effort we are making to attract foreign direct investment. Everybody's slowing down because they are not sure how demand for their products will look like in 2022 because of uncertainty of COVID-19. Travel decisions and things like that are factors that are also likely to affect the aviation sector and spill over into other sectors. Don't forget, when airport businesses are not doing well, there are businesses that are housed in airports. All these duty-free businesses and the rest. So it's a chain that connects every other sector. So COVID-19 is a risk that 2022 still has risk in terms of, not in terms of so many debts, God forbid, but in terms of investors halting decisions to invest. Then domestically, we are still looking at our unstable growth. We just said that GDP was 0.51 in first quarter, 5 points in second quarter, dropped again. This, for its economists, this is uncertainty in growth, accompanied, correlated by insecurity and other challenges that is making it difficult for investors to travel across the country. All these uncertainties also affect the domestic investor. The students who move from Lagos to Maiduguri to Niger State to Benue, back to Zaria, are all halting their demand for higher institutions choices. And this will also affect domestic investment decisions. So domestically, there are risks. There's also inflationary risks. Inflation, yes, is on a declining trend, but it's still double digit. And double digit inflation means weaker value of money and then higher prices of goods and services. So inflation risks, high interest rate risks, COVID-19 risks, health risks, insecurity risks, a lot of risks. Where we don't have too much risks is from the aspect of government spending. But government spending, again, is challenged by inability or uncertainty to be able to say that this is the money we'll use to fund government budget. So there's a lot of uncertainty around our economy. So the outlook for 2022 is that growth will be attained, but it will still be a creeping level of growth consolidating on the entire 2021. But it will be dependent again on COVID-19 and the ability of the international market to keep crude oil prices stable. Don't forget, Nigeria economy also launched National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 for 2022 and beyond. That document programs crude oil price to be $40 per barrel from 2021 to 2025. And currently, crude oil price is above 70. Even the budget that will soon be signed by the president on Friday has a $62 per barrel benchmark. So even our National Development Plan is a document that contains risks because it pegs crude oil price at $40 per barrel for the entire 4 years, but did not make provision for where the excess crude, the savings from the excess will be kept and how it will be used to refinance our government spending programs and projects. So this is one aspect. These are the risk factors that we can handle. These are the low-hanging fruits that government can use to make 2022 look robust in terms of projection. But generally speaking, what is important is that where there's life, there's hope. And we thank God for the impact of our religious sector on our economy and how we are doing well in terms of in terms of, how will I say it now, disappointing every projection on our economy from COVID-19. So if Nigerians can become more innovative to take advantage of domestic opportunities, 2022 is a great year, will be a great year by God's grace for Nigerians and our economy in general.
And we really look forward to 2022. It's been quite a discussion. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, we've been speaking with Dr. Taifa Abraham, who is an economist and also member, business manager and governing council of the Nigerian Economic Society. We look forward to having you on the program again.
My pleasure, anytime.
All right. Now let's quickly go on a short break, and then when we come back, we'll be continuing our discussion on the program. Please stay with us.
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual Daily Trust Dialogue, themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest Speaker, Governor of Kaduna State Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest Speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State Engineer David Umahi. Guest Speaker, former Chairman Federal Inland Revenue Service Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadaria Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on Trust TV, and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now let's take a look at, another issue. More than 6,000 flights have been cancelled worldwide over the long Christmas weekend, while thousands more were delayed as COVID-19 Omicron variant brings holiday hurt to millions. Now, according to FlightAware.com, more than 2,800 flights were scrabbled around the globe on Saturday, including more than 990 originating from or headed to U.S. airports, with over 8,500 delays. Now, on the home front, domestic airlines in Nigeria have increased their airfares owing to high volume of passenger traffic compared to airline seats during the holiday season. Compared to previous years, passenger traffic in this year's Christmas season could be described as low, but due to few aircraft seats, the airlines were unable to meet passengers' demand. Now, to give us perspectives on this, we have in the studio aviation consultant Godi Ike. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning.
We also are anticipating to join Daily Trust Aviation correspondent Abdulateef Aliyu, who will be joining us virtually on the program. Well, let's begin with, the year 2020 and 2021 has been battered, specifically for the aviation sector, and just when we thought that the world is, overcoming, or I would say coming out from the travel restrictions that we experienced in 2020, Omicron is now, leading us to yet another, experience. What are we to do to avert the kind of losses that we saw in 2020?
What can anyone really do with, Omicron or COVID-19, transmitting from one level to the other? Mm-hmm. It's really beyond human control, except if and when, wherever it came from, it decides to go back and leave humanity alone. Otherwise, the effect will be the same, because everybody's very scared. No country wants to, have these things, come in, but they do come in, by the way, because human movement is constant. People will continue to move around the world, and this business of, people or some countries saying, hey, this group of people can't come in, or this group of people, can't go out, and those stuff. It's just the effect is in preventing the
Spread.
transmission and spread is quite minimal.
Exactly. You know,
It doesn't really make sense.
exactly. You know, when the vaccines were discovered and people began to say, oh, we now have vaccine against COVID-19, there was some merit in some way, even though it was a mixed reaction, looking at the conspiracies and all of that. But I mean, for the better part, experts were excited that at least we have something that will douse, you know, the impact of this. But then the virus keeps mutating.
Mutating, yeah.
You know, and so the
It's their nature.
vaccines that we now have are now ineffective.
Yeah.
That is in that even if you have been vaccinated, you still stand a chance, you know, of contracting.
Yeah,
the
that's
virus
correct.
and all.
So, if you ask me, it really does not make sense shutting down the economy of the world. I do not agree or accept that the economies of the world should be shut down. We should continue to behave responsibly and ensure that all the protocols that have been developed, people wearing their mask when they are in public places, and then people are avoiding all the hugging and
Public gatherings.
Public gatherings. And what you see there again, I haven't seen a sense of responsibility. Well, I don't know what's going on in countries that I haven't visited recently, but from what I'm seeing right here in Nigeria, I haven't seen a reasonable sense of responsibility in ensuring that these things don't spread. We're lucky, I tell you, because the way we behave and the way things are going on, it should have ravaged this country to a standstill, very honestly. But for some strange reasons, it's not spreading the way one would expect if you put it on a scale of how we are behaving and what is expected in terms of transmission. You go to churches everywhere, it's filled with people who are not putting on their masks. I guess for those who attend the mosques, you can also confirm that a whole lot of people are not wearing their mask, and people are still busy, hugging, holding hands,
exchanging pleasantries,
exchanging pleasantries. The way we knew life, the way we knew life, and until the Corona came to change the way we lived, and we've gradually dropped that initial fear and worry that got everybody, on his or her toes. Say, hey, please keep away.
Yeah. So
that's not happening anymore.
Right.
And believe you me, I don't see us really getting back to that level of protocol observation when the Corona, broke out. I don't see it happening again because people really want to live their lives.
Yeah.
Right.
Could it be the reason why some of these European countries and Western countries are imposing the kind of sanction, or I would say restriction, they impose on Nigeria and maybe some other African countries?
That's hypocritical. If they can't make those kind of excuses because it's worse out there. So if you have anyone who wants to say, hey, don't bring us this stuff, we are the ones to
in
say.
terms of observing the protocols, maybe enforcing,
Well, the point is,
protocols,
for some,
they seem to be doing better.
do you know where Corona came from? Can you really tell how it came about?
I mean, what we know is it came from China.
From China.
That's what we know.
That is the story we've been told. But do you believe in miracle? I'm asking you.
I'm a Christian, so I believe in miracles.
You do believe in miracle?
Yes.
Do you believe in spirituality of life?
Yes, I do.
If you've read your Bible, you will know that what's going on right now happened some thousands of years ago. And
So we're seeing that reincarnating itself.
I'm not necessarily incarnation, but these things happen periodically when the creator of the world gets angry. and he wants to call his subjects to order. So perhaps we are being called to order.
Okay. Talking about being called, to order.
Yes.
Do we anticipate seeing
Excuse me.
another lockdown?
Sorry?
Do we anticipate seeing another lockdown?
Well, it depends on the mood of the government. But if I were to advise, I would not recommend that we shut down our economy. Put on the scale, it doesn't make sense. We shouldn't shut down the economy. We should continue to preach the gospel of responsibility.
But that's not sinking. Is it sinking? I mean, you just said that you do not see us, going back to the early days.
Because
more serious, about the protocols.
It's psychological.
And all of that.
It is psychological and natural. You would notice that the first time you ever got behind the wheels of a car, the very first time you made an attempt to drive, I'm sure you can recall how scared you were,
right?
How careful you were not to brush somebody else and not to those kind of psychological feelings. Now, compare that feeling at that time and the behavior you had at that time to now that you've been driving and sometimes you are asked, please don't use your phone when you're driving, and it's even being enforced by the appropriate law enforcement department, and say like that, you find a whole lot of people not obeying the rules, and once in a while they cause accidents. Once in a while, they kill people. And yet, it's all psychological. It's human nature. So that fear that befell the world when this started will never come back. No matter how many people that get slaughtered by the pandemic, it will never come back. Because humanity has gone through that initial fear and worry and past it.
But yet we have to protect ourselves.
Oh yes, very important.
Yes, so
very important.
How do we make sure that because it takes a lot of adjusting. We have to adjust to live with the virus.
Strict enforcement.
Especially if you look at the fact that the virus keeps mutating. Yeah.
Strict enforcement. Elsewhere, there's this video that I saw. I actually saved it, where Chinese government built some robots that watch out for people without mask, and they keep them at entrance gates of public offices. If you made to cross the gate without your mask, this robot would lift a big stick and with a pad on it and hit it on your face, in order to call your attention that, hey, you must put on your mask. All sorts of robotic activities, that have been set up. Well, supposedly, I haven't been to China recently, so I do not know whether that is a make-believe thing or whether they are actually installed in all the places as depicted by the by the video.
I saw some of those videos.
You saw some of those videos, so I wouldn't be able to tell. But then again, we need to take responsibility and we need to enforce the protocol that we've put in place.
Okay.
We really do need to.
All right, let's join virtually now. Okay, so we'll reconnect when we get the green light to do so.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of losses, for the airline companies in Nigeria, with all these cancellation of flights, who is going to, be responsible for paying? For these losses, who is losing anyways in the first place? Let's even begin. Is it the customers or the airline companies?
The issue of cancellation of flights is not necessarily a COVID thing. I hope you're not relating it to COVID. It's, especially the domestic one. It's not a COVID thing, really.
But what we know globally, the Omicron thing is largely responsible for some of these cancellations.
Yeah, for the international ones, yes, Omicron has created quite a lot, especially when people have to cross-check to make sure that those that are exiting are Omicron free, and that those that are coming in are also free, and so it's taking a whole lot of time to get flights ready to leave. But if we are dealing with the issue of cancellation domestically, there are a whole lot of other factors that have absolutely nothing to do with COVID. Over the years, this has been going on, and we haven't been able to enforce the passengers' Bill of Rights that we developed for the purpose of protecting both the passengers and the airlines. We haven't been enforcing them, and so airlines have also taken a whole lot for granted. Now, it's not all delays that you can hold airlines responsible for. I'll give you an example. Elsewhere, aviation fuel pipes are piped right to the tarmac where the airplanes are parked. And so you don't see tankers running up and down the tarmac to go and top up fuel for the airlines. The dumps are right there, and so if any airplane wants to refill, it's a question of moving it to the point of take, and then putting the hose, usually a pressure hose, and sucking the volume of fuel needed. And of course, there's a meter there that reads and tells exactly the volume that's been taken on, and then the exchange of electronic payments are made, and the company that owns the aviation fuel gets instantly paid, and then all bills settled, and everybody's happy, and the plane moves on. But what do we do here? We are still doing the old-fashioned supply of fuel by tankers, with all the risk attendant to that. We are very lucky as a people and as a nation, I must tell you, because the kind of things that we do when technology has taken care of a whole lot of things, we are refusing to invest in doing something that will last for a long time. We should have airports that have supply of aviation fuel done through underground pipes.
Okay, so what can we do to protect customers in this instance? Because yes, like you said, there are tendencies of abuse by some airline companies. So how can the customer be protected?
When delay is as a result of weatherman telling the pilots that they can't fly because of safety issues, it's not the fault of the airline, and you can't put a charge on that. When delays are as a result of sudden technical fault in the airplane, because you see the airplane is built in such a way, it's an awesome machine, built to work, built to be safe, with a lot of redundancy installed in them. That is to say, if one equipment gets bad, you have a redundant one that can be switched to get things going. And then what's so beautiful, if you walk into a cockpit first thing in the morning in a state that is usually known in the aviation sector as dark and cold, the reason it's called dark and cold is that with the modern glass cockpit, when you shut them down, everywhere is black. Yes. And of course, the cockpit that's a small, cozy space. So with the morning dew, you walk into a cockpit, is quite chilled. And then those glass cockpits are, completely dark until you turn them on, and then they light up.
Quite beautiful.
Yes. So that's why, it's described as when you walk into a cockpit, dark and cold. First thing in the morning. Now it's a time to set up. if you look at the roof of the airplane, you see all sorts of installations, buttons, knobs, all there. Those are scanning buttons and scanning knobs that enable pilots to carry out initial check. Now you can actually do front, back, left, right, do all the scannings required. If anything is wrong, technically, with that airplane, the airplane tells you even before you start up. Yes, that's how wonderfully built those machines can be. And so, if pilots take their seats and begin to get ready for the flight, while you are checking in, you think that they are just sitting down there folding their arms. A whole lot of work is going on in those cockpits.
Right.
While you are still checking in,
Okay.
at the check-in counter, a whole lot of work is going on. The pilots are getting ready for the flight, doing all the checks and making sure that the plane is technically sound and fit, to do the trip. And so, it may be that during the scanning, that the airplane complains that something is wrong.
Okay.
Now,
so
for safety reasons, that job must be done, and so it instantly creates a delay. Those kind of delays, again, are not the fault of the airlines, and they cannot be held responsible for that. But let me tell you one that can be fault of the airline. Sometimes the booked flights and the capacity of the airplane is not filled up, and then they begin to make excuses due to operational reasons that they can't fly. But in all reality, those that is their business to be sure that everything is good and fine, especially NCAA, would know clearly that there was nothing wrong. They are just waiting to fill up the airplane.
Okay. Now, there's this report in your release by the National Bureau of Statistics that showed that Nigeria exported over 100 billion worth of helicopters to Ghana in 2021. Well, many are asking, we don't even have a plant here, so how come Nigeria is the one exporting helicopters to Ghana?
I don't know how they came about that kind of information. We do not assemble helicopters here, do we? And we do not manufacture. It might be that there are some, top business people who are using, our funds here to import and transit to Ghana or wherever else they are sending them. We run a system where some people are above the law. We must admit that that's the kind of system we're running. A few people are above the law, do things that they normally should not do, and then for profit, and they get away with it. So if that news is making its rounds, I will urge you journalists to carry out investigative journalism.
That was actually a report by Daily Trust, I think the day before yesterday, on this. It's an extensive analysis and detailed investigation that was done. So basically, Nigeria is believed to be used as a transit
Here you go.
route of some sort, to all of that.
Here you go.
So that's the conversation.
Oh, wonderful! You see, was I there when you carried out your? But from what I know, this is the only thing that might just be happening, and it's because of the. I'm trying to be mild with my language. That's why I'm thinking about the appropriate word to use to describe the sort of attitude we have as a people and as a government. We must bring ourselves to a point where people must know that we have laws, that our laws have teeth, can bite, are willing to bite, and we bite when they catch you doing the wrong thing. If we don't send that signal, no one gets serious.
Right.
All right. Well, because of our time, we have to end the discussion. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We look forward to having you again. We've been speaking with Gwadi Ike. He is an aviation consultant, and unfortunately we are unable to connect with our Daily Trust correspondent in Lagos. That's talking about our aviation correspondent to also chip in on this matter. For now, let's take a look at COVID-19 update, which is quite alarming, the recent numbers that we are recording. Now, on the 28th of December 2021, 1,356 new confirmed cases and 2 deaths were recorded in Nigeria. Now, on the on this day, we are talking about 599 confirmed cases and 1 death recorded in Nigeria, and that we have that recorded in 15 states. Now, beginning with Delta State, that recorded 194, and then Edo State with 94 cases. FCT had 80 cases. Kaduna 48, Lagos 35, Ondo 23, Kano 21, Rivers 20, Kwara 20, Ogun 18. Plateau State had 12 cases, Abia 8, Cross River 8, Ekiti 6, and Bauchi with 3 cases. Now, till date, the total number of confirmed cases, it's 239,019 cases that have been confirmed in the country. 213,180 cases have been discharged. So we have about 3,027 deaths also recorded in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. To tell you that it's quite alarming. The numbers are rising, and it's really a great concern. If you are watching carefully, you would see that we are recording even much higher numbers that we recorded in the early days of COVID-19, which is to tell you that it's something to be cautious about. The flu that you see people, having everywhere, the fever and the coughs, do not take that for granted. It just could be, yes. But in our usual way as Nigerians, we seem to ward it off and just move on. And that's,
because it's human nature. I just described it to you. The psychology of first time you're hit, you're worried, you're scared, and then you get over that stage and get to the stage of not worrying anymore. And then the unfortunate thing is that taking a reverse to the first stage is usually very difficult.
Yes. Well, we continue to appeal. We'll continue to appeal to our viewers. Please observe the protocols, the safety protocols. Wear a face mask. Maintain some level of social distancing.
Especially in religious
settings.
Yes,
very, very important. Well,
much is not done. I can bet you that in churches, a whole lot of people. Maybe because of belief that if we're worshiping God, then God will not let this happen to us. A whole lot of people.
But we've seen that in the past.
A whole lot of people are not wearing the masks in those environments, and then a whole lot of people are still attending clubs.
True.
Wow.
True. Well, people, I hope that we stop doing that.